more love, more joy, everything.
It's inspired young people.
Inspiration comes from within you. When you clear out the garbage that's in your mind, you then create space for something better, more beautiful to come in.
Let's have life and have it more abundantly.
I say yes.
It's like taking a workshop. I get to be in my pajamas.
We have a very active imagination, which is why it's important to learn how to harness it and then point it in the direction you want to go.
I listen to your show every day.
It's time now for Living Your Inspired Life with Susan Burrell. Susan is no-nonsense, inspirational, motivational, and fun.
This is positive talk radio.
Practical wisdom for everyday life.
It's a gift you give yourself.
Now, here's Susan.
And welcome to Living Your Inspired Life. You're listening to News Talk 1590 KVTA. And I am just going to invite you at the beginning of the show. Well, I do it every week, everybody. And if you listen, you know I do this. But I'm going to invite you to go to the website, livingyourinspiredlife.org, and listen to whatever inspires you to listen to. And the thing about it is then you can listen to them over and over again. So you don't have to wait until we're airing on Sunday to be inspired. You can go to livingyourinspiredlife.org and tune up and tune in to what's going on in life. So with that said, I have a dear friend who's joining me today. I'm really very thrilled and excited. I know it's just going to be a wonderful journey, and she's written a book, and I thought it was just about time to do this book. So I want to invite Reverend Karen Wylie onto the show.
Yes, welcome to me and welcome to you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so now I said Reverend, so we're just going to get that out of the way at the beginning because Karen is an ordained minister from Agape, which is it's an international center down in Culver City where you did all your
training for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. I was there, I would say I went through my spiritual life there. I became who I am today primarily through all my work there.
At Agape.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's happened now is, and we became friends because you moved to Ojai, and you've been in Ojai 6 years?
It'll be 7 years in June.
Time
and I
just
love
flies.
living in Ojai.
Yeah, I know. It's beautiful.
Lots of wonderful people there.
Yep. So you've written a book, which I have found is a great daily guide, and it's called Into Me See, a book for daily inspiration. And I like it because, this is what I do with every book, Karen. And I know you know this. You probably do it too. I just open up a book in the middle of it. And, and whatever it says, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to contemplate today, or that's what I'm going to take into meditation if I've got my time to meditate. Or even if I'm having a wonky day, a kind of yucky day, I can pick up a book, open it up and go, okay, now I feel better because I've read something that I know I needed to hear right then. It never fails me. Mm-hmm. So that's what your book has been doing for me.
Well, thank you, and I'm so glad.
Yeah, and see, I have all these Post-its, and nobody else can see it but you, Karen. But I have all these little Post-its, I'm like, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. Oh, I'm reading that too. In fact, it was Easter Sunday, I guess it was last week. And I got up in the morning to do my meditation before the day started, and I opened it up, and didn't you know, it was talking about rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
Rebirth and renewal. I was like, well, that's what I needed.
Absolutely.
So what caused you to write this book, Into Me See? Okay, first of all, Into Me See. Now, that's an interesting title. It's kind of ethereal.
A little take on intimacy, which is what occurred to me when I was thinking about what will I call this book. It really occurred to me that our journey is a very intimate one, our spiritual journey. And for me, it's about the self-discovery. It's about self-knowing. It's about self-love and moving into that space where we really realize that there is a divine aspect to us. And so for me, this book, all the writing I did in this book, and these writings were taken, a lot of these writings I wrote during my time at Agape for the publication Intervisions, which is a publication that Agape puts out. And many times people would say to me, "When are you writing a book? When are you writing a book?" And this seemed like the perfect time to complete that idea in mind, which has been in my mind for some time. Now is the time. And the writing of this book was for me a great journey. For me now, this book is God's book. I feel like simply the messenger. I feel like I was the messenger when each of these things occurred to me. There were times of revelation as I was moving in my life. There were times when things would happen and I would come to some kind of self-discovery, and the writing then would come from that kind of place. And much of it was inspired by spirit or upon reflection, after the fact, something I learned, a beautiful new understanding, and I put it in writing. And I'm so grateful now to have compiled this in the way it has come forth. And people have commented, as you did, the gift it is to just open the book and read a page, and gives you something to think about.
Well, each section is just, it's not even, it's not like in chapters even. It's 2 pages. So if you're not a non-reader, there's lots of people out there that really say, oh, no, I don't read. But this is an awesome way to access divine guidance, or at least get a spark of inspiration that can cause you to open up in a way that you hadn't anticipated. And what I noticed, Karen, is that some of these writings, it seems like it came out of your journaling, because you said just a few minutes ago it was your self-exploration. And it seems like there's definitely a couple of things that instead of it being, well, here's what I've learned and this is how you can know it, it was more like, wow, today I was really wondering where I am, and then and then the words just kind of, as you were journaling, it seems like on some of these that, and I love that because for me it makes it accessible. It's not some person who's an authority telling me how I'm supposed to think or believe or feel. So I find like it is an intimacy. It is into me see kind of book. There was one thing I hit today, and I don't know if I can find it right away, that did feel very much like it came out of your journaling. And well, I'm just going to read something from it, okay?
Great.
Okay. And so how Karen has this set up, which I would imagine is the same for the magazine Inner Visions, is that there's a quote at the beginning, then there's a body of your speculation or contemplation, and then there's an affirmation at the end, which I love because then I can just go, oh, after I've read it, I can take the affirmation with me throughout the day and think about it. And I don't have to go, what did she say the rest of that thing was in that chapter I read? So this one is called Emergence. Hello. I think I opened this because I feel like I'm emerging into my life, right? So I'm going to read the quote at the top. And this is by my favorite mentor, Ernest Holmes. And Ernest said, under the topic of emergence, spiritual experience cannot and does not borrow its light from another, no matter how great or noble that other may be. It springs from within, coming from that never-failing fountain of life which quenches every thirst, whose source is in eternity, the wellspring of self-existence. And then it goes on, Karen goes on to say, a new magnificent you is emerging now. She was talking to me. I swear you were talking to me, Karen. Okay. A new magnificent you is emerging now. It is unstoppable. You have willed it so by all you've done up until this present moment. This new you is willing to live and love fearlessly, to be bold in starting and living its truth. I'm just raising my hand, people. Yes. It is not fueled by the same desires of earlier days, but rather by the deeper, purer desires of the heart. It is fueled by the desire to love and be loved, to serve and be served, and the desire to be beauty and see beauty everywhere. It has transcended all the false beliefs about the way to happiness or peace. It lives in utter and complete prosperity and abundance, knowing its source and supply is unlimited. It is not afraid to be seen and heard, and it listens so much more intensely. It hears everything spoken and unspoken. It hears beyond the words being said. This new you is filled with joy. Joy bubbles up over the simplest things. I'm just laughing. It wants to share and give and be in surroundings that nurture its soul. It is humble in its greatness, realizing that something else has arisen within which is not ego-driven. It is driven by the pure desire of perfect love and service. The new you has the energy and vitality to do whatever is at hand. It answers the call and is always in the right place at the right time. The new you is blessed and is a blessing, for the grace of God sustains it in every way. How thankful we are to be blessed. We arise now to our greatest yet to be, realizing there is nothing to fear. We gratefully leave all of our false beliefs behind as we begin our immaculate journey of profound love, a love which is returned to us over and over again, magnified and overflowing. And then the affirmation is, I willingly allow my greatness to emerge. I live and love fearlessly. I am a servant and the beloved of God. Mm-hmm. Okay, that right there would feed me for a week. Mm-hmm. I mean, it did.
Yes.
So this to me, while you were talking specifically to me, Karen, definitely.
Yes.
It sounds like you were really affirming this to yourself when you actually wrote this.
Always. I would say every writing in there is an affirmation to myself. But of course, we know we're one. So self and other, all the same.
Right.
So, but many times I would start with a feeling tone or start writing, and spirit would take over. And the words would just come. But the words are lived then.
Right.
They're alive. The words are alive because that is our life.
Right.
And it's part of the self-discovery.
Right. So part of this is, because what I liked in this particular piece is talking about love, being love and loving, and then being of service. Mm-hmm. And I think for a lot of us, when we come out of a darkness, per se, there is that aspect of finding that renewed love within ourselves and the love that we want to share with other people. And that causes us to move into a greater degree of service. Mm-hmm. At least that's been my experience. And I know that it's probably been yours.
Yes.
I would hope that a lot of people that come out of that dark hole get out and start doing things that are serving humanity or serving their fellow.
It seems to be that way.
Yeah.
Because in our own discovery, we discover we are all the same. The more we clear the false beliefs, the more we let go of our sense of separation from other people, from anything really, we begin to discover we're all one, and everyone on the planet is my brother and my sister.
Mm-hmm. I have this new experience over the last year because of the my new man that I'm with, who's a retired Navy. And so my new experience is interacting or running into or meeting or having on my radar now other military people. And last week we had Elizabeth McCormick on, and she was an Army Black Hawk helicopter pilot. That was her career. And she came out of that experience wanting to be of greater service. I mean, how much more service can you do when you've been doing stuff like that? That's in my mind, right? And then I find that these people that have served in the military, that's what they get into other volunteer organizations and service organizations because they've served their country and they want to continue to serve humanity. And that, having not had that in my culture, and now seeing this, it blows my mind because I would think as soon as I'm done, well, maybe it would just be me, but if I'm done with that commitment, I would be done with that. Do you know what I mean? Going out and then serving in other areas. But these people, that's their life calling for so many of them. It's wonderful.
What they're doing in their mission for the military is kind of a different experience. I think some of them come away with a greater realization of their connection to Spirit,
God, yeah.
to a greater connection to God, and come away with a desire to be unified,
Yeah.
rather than that sense of separation, which the military often, we're in separation, oftentimes doing those kinds of things that are required of us in the military.
Yeah.
But, it doesn't surprise me that somebody comes away from that experience wanting to connect more, maybe with their own inner loving presence, their own inner peace.
Right.
Let's put it that way, their
Right.
own inner peace.
And then in serving others, that peace grows and grows.
Absolutely.
Or it stays alight.
Yes.
On fire. So, so would you share just a little bit of what got you into this journey of studying spiritual practice and principle for 20 odd years? Well, you're still studying it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you never get it done.
You
We
never get
always
it
say
done.
that.
Even after you become an ordained minister, you never get it done.
You never get it done. Well, my journey probably began through divorce. That was a very difficult time for me. And it was at that time that I really heard some tapes and just started pursuing my spiritual life. I remember thinking at the time I really wanted to know who I was. I felt like I lost myself a bit in my marriage, and I really didn't know. I really felt like I don't know who I am. And before I get involved in another deep relationship, I really want to discover Karen. Who's Karen? Who am I at depth? And I realized I had so many belief systems and thoughts about myself and false ideas about myself that I've discovered over the years. But the process of just uncovering what I begin to see, and I've traveled a lot in journeys like to John of God, or in my whole process of spiritual growth and development, what I have discovered is that it's not so much we gain or learn something, is that we dissolve some blocks within us, some false beliefs, some false ideas, which allows the true essence of who we are, which is that I refer to it, the Christ presence within, that powerful self within. Mostly it's about dissolving anything in the way of that, rather than learning something new or reading something out of a book. I think when you quoted that quote from Ernest Holmes, he's basically saying, you don't get it out of a book. You don't get it from somebody telling it to you. You get it from your own discovery. And so I believe when we're born from the light. I think many of us come on this planet, we come perfect, whole, and complete. And our journey in this life is to remember that. Our journey is to get rid of all these ideas that have come along the way with well-meaning parents, well-meaning teachers, well-meaning interactions we've had in our lives that have somehow gotten us to this notion that we are less than, that we are not that beautiful, perfect emanation of God that we began with. So for me, it's like, the journey was getting rid, little by little, of all the ways in which I've blocked my own good. For I believe that we live in a benevolent universe. I believe that we live in a giving universe, and there is so much love. My feeling is if we knew how much we are loved on this planet, we would fear nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that love comes from Spirit, from God, and we're the ones in the way of it. It's flowing constantly. And we just need to get out of the way so that, and this beloved infinite intelligence knows our desires, knows exactly what we desire from the depths of our being. And if we could get out of the way, it would be delivered. And that has been my experience. And I'm so grateful now because I'm so out of the way that I watch the miracles happen in my life, the need for something, and then instantly someone or something shows up to fill that need. Now, it may come from some different source or in surprising ways, but for me now, the big deal is getting out of my own way, making sure that I don't get in my head, my ego self, get my ego self involved somehow. So for me, it's like having desires and then non-attachment to how it's going to show up, the way it's going to come, but true faith and trust that that there's a source there that supplies our needs, and the faith and trust that it is coming, and we just need to be out of the way of it.
Yeah, I love that you said it that way, because I think a lot of us do whatever kind of study, self-exploration. We're trained to go to college, high school, college, take a class so you can learn the thing you think you don't know. And I love what you just said, is that it's all right there, has been all the time, and just getting out of the way. And, I remember years ago, there were those bumper stickers that said, expect a miracle.
Uh-huh.
And I remember at the time going, that was, I don't know, must have been the 80s or something, the 90s. And I remember thinking, yeah, I expect a miracle. But what I found is my expecting a miracle was becoming like a hardened fact that I expect a miracle. And then I was looking for the miracles. And where are the miracles? Because I'm expecting a miracle, and it's kind of what you were just saying about getting out of the way reminds me of that, where we attach, I expect a miracle. So where the heck are the miracles? It's almost forcing it.
We think we need to create the miracles.
Right.
We think we need to create the possibility or anything. And we're kind of trained that way, honestly, in our world. We're trained to think we have to work hard to get it, to get the goods, whatever the goods are, money, the house, the big house, whatever it is. We have to work hard. And what I'm discovering in life is when you come into the realization of who you are as a powerful presence, Christ's presence, you don't have to work hard. You just have to trust, have faith, open up, but you do get soft. I must say, I've become very humble. I'm not arrogant in this. It's not, I realize I'm blessed. I live by the grace. I live by grace. So I don't take that for granted. I don't. It's just a beautiful experience of divine flow.
So in your past, just to give everybody kind of an idea what taking it for granted would look like, because I'm sure there's lots of people going, yeah, I trust, I have faith, but then when it comes down to sitting down and paying a bill or showing up and doing something different at work, maybe that goes out the window because we're in a circumstance of life as opposed to the flow of life sometimes. So what did that used to look like when you didn't have that?
I think this process of coming to this awareness, depending on where you start from, some people have a much better, easier time growing up and maybe a better family situation. Depending on what you've been through, there's some work involved. I would say the spiritual, you must do the work, the spiritual work, in order to come to this place I'm talking about. And the spiritual work, as I say, is becoming conscious of what are those things that you've picked up along the way? What are those beliefs that you have anchored in your life that are blocking your good?
That are in the way of
That
you.
are in the way. Yeah, what are those things? You have to be conscious, but also I see you constantly, I have a process. I meditate daily. I do spiritual reading, and as you've said so beautifully, I feel my life is a life of service. And I just think there is something. It's not that you're just going to sit there. It's an active business here. Mm-hmm. Being love, and then being loving is active. It means giving. It means giving of yourself. Taking opportunity to give of service. And service may look like a million things. Maybe driving somebody to a doctor's appointment. Maybe just saying yes in a situation where you can and you're helping somebody. It looks like a million different things, but I think it's a constant, but it's not happening just because you want it to happen. It's happening because you're really doing the work, the inner work on yourself. You're really, and most of it is about learning to love yourself. I would say in all my teachings and facilitations and things like that, and you know it too, because you've been a teacher and a facilitator, I'm surprised at how many people do not feel worthy, do not feel self-love. And that to me is the beginning of really getting to the place where you love yourself enough that you start doing the work, because you can only love another to the degree you love yourself. So you can only give. It's all about your own, what you hold off from yourself, you're holding off really from others in your life. So the work is about, that process of coming into love with the self and doing the work on the self.
I appreciate
conscious.
that.
Yeah.
So I want to read another one. It's another one that I earmarked that has a star on it from your book, Intimacy. And I'm just going to read the whole thing again because it worked me, Karen. So I'm imagining it's going to work other people.
Yes.
So this one you titled The Fire Within. And the quote is from, now I don't know if I can say his name, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin.
Yeah, that's
who wrote The Little Prince, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so Pierre said, "Someday after we have mastered the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love. Then for the second time in the history of the world, man will have discovered fire." I love that. I got chills reading it. So this is what you wrote about the fire within. "I have spent my life," and this is going to sound familiar to a lot of people out there, because when I read this, I was like, oh yeah, that's me. "I have spent my life rushing around, constantly working, being busy, taking classes, and filling my life so full that I barely had time to breathe. The truth of the matter is I have been running away from myself. All that rushing around relieved me of the responsibility of being fully present and alive. It was a slow death, and quite a socially accepted one to boot. Boy, isn't it? Now I sit in the midst of the fire. There is such passion burning within me. The passion is for life and living. The passion is for you to see who I truly am, and for me to see who you truly are. The passion is for you to know how much I love you, and for you to love me. The passion is here for me to feel love beyond all fear, and for me to somehow let you know how safe you are in the loving arms of God. This passion is consuming me now. It seems so self-absorbed that sometimes my human mind tries to judge it as not good. This absorption into self, but then judge it not as good, this absorption into self. But then I rest in the knowledge that my own unique path has brought me to this place. How can it not be a perfect place for me? So I stop all the human activity and look within, and what I see is unlimited possibility for me, for you, for all of us. This is truly living from the inside out, in perfect faith and trust in God. I let go now of the false belief that all that rushing around is going to make me safe in a complex world. I am safe in the midst of the silence of my own soul. I am safe in God. I am forever safe. People, I just randomly opened this up and I went, oh my, did I need to hear that today? The other day I had so many back-to-backs going, appointment after appointment after appointment. And I'm like, okay, when was I going to eat? And I opened this up that morning. I was like, all right, I got to slow down.
Yes. Yep. Yes.
Fabulous.
Yes.
And what we don't realize, because we're so busy rushing, is that really is what life is. Mm-hmm. That kind of like a river I'm seeing in my mind, like a slow meandering that brings us to exactly where we were supposed to be anyway, or where we are anyway. Mm-hmm. And all the franticness of life and the freeways and appointments and stuff like that is just what we do to keep ourselves busy so we don't get to know ourselves well.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we've been trained up that way. Okay, so here's the other thing I want to talk to you about, Karen, because, in your 20s and 30s, in our 20s and 30s, my son's about to be 22. There is this whole, I got an agenda. I got a job. I have responsibilities I have to meet, bills I have to pay, blah, 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 blah. And I'm starting to see how his focus are those responsibilities. Now, I guess that's right and perfect. But looking back for me, if I had meandered just a little bit more during my 20s and just a little bit more in my 30s instead of taking the job stuff so seriously, I don't know. I don't know if I would have found myself sooner instead of later.
That's an interesting question. I think I think we do go through segments in our life where we are acquiring. And that's probably just natural because we're learning. And in the early days, teenagers, young adults, and so on, we're learning about life. And so I think it's great if you have the fundamentals, if you had the teaching somewhere along the way so that you don't lose sight of the joy.
Right.
You don't lose sight of why you're doing what you're doing. I think what happens is we get caught up in doing it for money or doing it for something other than the love of life or doing it. It's so wonderful if we could just not mess with our kids enough to allow them to do what they really love to do in life instead of talking them into being a doctor when they really wanted to be a teacher or
an artist or something.
And so many parents, well-meaning, I'm sure they're well-meaning because they want the best for their children always, I know. But how many parents have talked their children out of their creative side because you can't make money doing that.
Right.
And so, you have to get a job, get a real job.
A real job.
A real job. And that real job may have nothing to do with joy for this person, for the kid, for the young adult. It may have nothing to do for that. So it's really, I think it's the choiring. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like, what we're doing, what's behind that, and what is our purpose in that. But always, we should, in life, I don't want to say should, but in life, how perfect if we can never lose sight of the joy, if we could never lose sight of why we're doing something and what really brings joy in our lives. So I just think I look back on my life now and I see it divided into these perfect segments of young adult, acquiring, learning about life, jobs, having a lot of doing different things. And then I was married and I had my son, and that was a beautiful part of life. And I think we just have these little parts of our lives that are dedicated to some growth within us, some understanding of this.
Even though they're compartmentalized, like now I'm a mom and now I'm a businesswoman and now I'm a... Yeah. It's interesting because being in the second half of life now, there is a part of me that goes, wow, if I had known this then, right? There's always that.
Yes.
If only I had known this then. But it does seem and it does seem that youth is wasted on the young, because, wow, had I known this stuff, I would probably have been more joyful in my life in the early years, instead of waiting until the later years to go, you know what, enough of all that, I'm just going to be happy.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people go through that. I'm talking to a lot of women that are in the empty nest or beginning that thing of their children leaving. And I had lunch with a dear college friend a couple days ago whose husband's retired. Both kids the youngest just went to college last fall. And she said, now we're trying to figure out who we are as a couple again. And she goes, it's really kind of confusing. And of course it is, because you've lived a whole nother life in between, when you first met and you were a couple and then you had kids and now you're in the next phase of I'm a couple. And it's like, wow.
Yes.
And that can be kind of fun for people. But I know that for a lot of people, it's very daunting.
Very daunting, very challenging. But again, the help, that's why I think the spiritual work, doing readings and engaging somehow in spiritual activity, spiritual teachings of some kind, I think that really fortifies us through whatever phases we're going through. I think it's important to have some sort of spiritual following. I happen to think all paths are fine. If you get to the mountaintop, hey, I don't care how you get there. It's just fine. So I have no problem with that. I think it's great, though, if you can find a path.
Right.
Some
And
path.
if you get to the top, everybody gets to see the view.
That's right.
You know, it's not just one view for one person.
That's right.
It's a panorama.
Yeah, it's a panorama.
Yeah.
And I'm now I think it's so important, more than ever with what's going on in our world, that we do embrace all paths to God.
Oh, I just got chills when you said that.
All people.
All
Yeah.
people. And, you know, we've had such a powerful, well, it just continues to be powerful, but I was just listening to a recording I had done a while back, and it was right around the time of the shootings in the South, where and where a lot of the southern states were choosing to retire the Southern flag, the flag of Dixie, you know, and also it was around the time of when the Supreme Court finally said yes to gay rights, and those are very hopeful, in many ways, hopeful times, even though it means it's certain groups of people have to adjust their viewpoint or recognize that was in the way of us growing as a human race. You know, and hopefully a lot of those people are recognizing that. And hopefully that's what we're seeing globally too, even though there's been all sorts of terrorist attacks around the world right now, continuing. I'm really trying to stand hopeful that the majority of people see that all of those ways of being are what you were talking about earlier. They get in the way of who we are. That's not who we really are. Any of those individuals on any part of the planet. We're not that malignant, evil person. We're in our way. We're in our own way.
You know, just as individuals, what doesn't serve us has to come up in order for us to find the divine self. I look at the world now and I say what we see in the world now is what needs to come up for the healing of the planet. And so it looks messy and it doesn't look good. But a spiritual perspective would say it's all bubbling up to be healed so that we can be unified on this planet, so there can be love on this planet, so that we can live in peace on this planet and share the food on this planet and be
the resources.
unified. Yeah, actually, and be unified on this planet. So I don't get caught up in the horror of all of this. Doesn't mean I have my head in the sand. Doesn't mean that I don't care or don't have compassion for what's going on, but a spiritual perspective allows me to see this is healing. This is the way healing looks. This is the way it has to look, apparently. I mean, because, and then we would say spiritually, we would say because it is so. So that's how we know this must be what needs to happen.
Right, right. I want to read another thing from your book, See Into Me. Intimacy. And this one's called, it's so funny because these are the things I start, and as we're having this conversation, these things fit perfectly. So this one is titled Staying Calm When the River's Rising.
Perfect. Isn't that amazing?
I
I
know.
love that's spiritual too. Do you see how that happens? That we and do this and intentionally look at the flow, how beautifully this is happening. It's no accident.
That's right. So I just have to tell everybody, you guys, there's no outline, there's no agenda. Karen and I just came in, sat down. Tom turned the radio show on to record, and here we are having a conversation, and everything that I marked just fits perfectly, and I just automatically open the book, and there's what needs to be read next. So I love it. I love when you get to actually see the flow of life, you know?
That's right.
So this one is titled Staying Calm When the River's Rising, and the quote is from Lao Tzu.
Yeah.
Mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. Boy, ain't that the truth. So that's my comment. Anyway, so Karen Wylie says, staying calm when the river's rising, that's the key. We live in a world of ups and downs and inside outs, births, deaths, illness, and miracle healings, all happening simultaneously. This is the human condition. Our spiritual work does not make us immune from that. What it does do is make the living easier. It enables us to greater truth when those around us cannot see it. It provides an inner strength and resilience that can and will weather any storm. It enables us to see infinite possibility when others see despair. It fortifies us in clear knowing when others are ready to give up. It reminds us of our loving, compassionate nature when we are ready to give up. It calms us in the storm and sustains us in the peace. Relying on divine spirit, we can stay calm when the river's rising. That's how we become a beneficial presence. It's not about fighting against anything. It's not about resisting anything. It's about living from the inside out. It's about living from the divine knower within. If I can see the good, I can help someone else see it. If I can believe in the healing, someone else can begin to believe it. That's our main job, to stay in our loving, and it is not easy because we get triggered when someone does something or says something that touches an unhealed place inside of us. We do our spiritual work to heal those places so that we may stay anchored in truth no matter what is coming our way. The river may rise, but I shall not be moved. I remember who I am and whose I am. Because of that, I can see you clearly too. I think that is so true. It's just really being aware enough in those moments of challenge that there is something more happening here besides what I'm experiencing.
Right.
And your thing of saying that, when you get triggered, hello, I get triggered a lot. Mm-hmm. That is just pointing to something within me that needs healing. And oftentimes we want to put that thing that triggered us outside of us and say, well, it's them that did that. It's the people that bombed in Brussels that did that. It's but there's something within me that if I notice it, then there's something there that I need to pay attention to heal or to get out of my way about. So the infinite higher good can move through and make the way clear.
Absolutely. We all have people in our lives that present a challenge to us, like people we don't get along with or people we literally don't like.
Yep.
And
that's okay. You can literally not like somebody.
You can literally not
and
like
then love
somebody.
them too.
Yeah. And what's so interesting is the hard thing, I think, is to take all of that back to the self, is always look to the self for what's going on here. When somebody has said something that really causes you to be upset and angry and so on, just to be able to look at that statement and what about that statement made me so angry? What about that statement? What is triggered inside of me when that person says that? And it's such an opportunity to discover someplace within us that's needs some work, someplace within us. That's big though, because honestly, a lot of us would just like to judge the other. A lot of us would just like to say, hey, that person really is a creep. That person really is someone not to like.
Right, and it's their problem.
It is their problem.
It's their problem.
Yeah, not my problem. But so I'm telling you, you have to look within. You have to say, okay, what does this say about me? And that's the biggest work of all. But the more you get into this thing I'm called self-love and self-awareness, the more you're willing to do that. Oh, now I have this huge, because my life is turning out so great, I have this huge desire to really clean house in my interior landscape.
Wow.
Really clean house because every time I move something out of the way, I see my life so magnificently. I see what's happening in my life every day, a joy, every day a blessing. I wake up in such enormous gratitude for my life. So for me, hey, another opportunity to get something out of my way so that I can have more joy and have all it's such a beautiful existence.
I'm working with I just started work with a coach, and she gave me this mantra that I've been working on, so basically I'm working on, I let go of any and all grievances. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, I can do that. She's not asking me to forgive everybody yet, You know, 'cause I can forgive a lot of people, but there's a couple people that are still my triggers. So, but grievances, yeah, I could do that. I let go of any and all grievances. So I'm working this mantra and, you know, stuff's happening. I'm like, ooh, there's a grievance. I let go of any and all grievances. In the middle of the night, I woke up and I went, oh my goodness, I let go of any and all grievances that I hold against myself. That's the work.
That's right.
That's the work, because then
Yeah.
everybody else is fine. It's the stuff in me
That's right.
that I hang on to, that I use to, you know, beat myself up with, or put in that suitcase I lug around behind me, or whatever it is, whatever the visual is for somebody. But to let go of any and all grievances that I hold against myself.
Big one.
Yep.
That's a big, big one. And it's so important, because I was listening to a spiritual wizard, some spiritual teacher, I forget who exactly it was now, but that person said, our problem is not accepting other people, our problem is accepting ourselves.
Yep.
And that really struck home with me, because it's always about that. It's always about the self, always about, do you love yourself? Can you forgive yourself? You know, not just about, can you forgive someone else? Can you forgive yourself?
It's all, and I find it's almost easier to forgive somebody else.
Yeah.
I can get there sooner. Let me
Yeah.
put it that way. Not necessarily easier, but I can get there sooner than if I've done something that I feel was just awful.
Yes.
Then it goes in
Right.
my little bag of grievances.
Yeah, I
evidently.
know. Your little bag of personal grievances.
Personal
Things
grievances.
you've done
It's-
wrong. And the trouble is, see, we know all that.
Oh, yeah.
We know so much about ourselves. And
That
we're-
nobody else knows.
That nobody else knows.
That
and
if
we
they
know
knew, wow, they probably
well,
wouldn't like us.
They wouldn't like us. That's what we say. That's what we think. So this business of self-love is a big business, important business. But really, you know, we're doing the best we can. We're humans. We're in this human experience, and I think we're doing pretty well. We're doing the best we can.
Well, and the only thing we can do is take it day by day, right?
Right.
Right? So I just opened up To Live Each Season. The title of this little chapter is called To Live Each Season. And I like this one too, Karen, because in it you asked some questions. I thought, I'm gonna write these questions down and ask myself these every once in a while, because I don't ask myself a lot of questions. I ask I guess I kind of want to say this is what I think, you know, instead of, well, what is it that I'm really thinking? Do you know what I'm saying? Okay, so this is called To Live Each Season, and the quote is from Henry David Thoreau. So live each season as it passes. Breathe the air, drink the drink, taste the fruit, and resign yourself to the influences of each. I love that. So Karen Wylie went on to say, I prayed for a shift in perception because I could not see another way. I did not even realize how locked in I was to thinking that certain aspects of my life had to remain in place in order for me to survive well. I had not embodied the idea that God is my source, even though I said it 1,000,000 times. So I took a baby step in prayer because I could not take a big one in physical action. Now I came to see where I am the only limiting force in my life. A great discovery for a seeker of truth. The truth is, each of us is perfectly free and can have it all. There is no limit to what God has in store for us. Our work is always to see where we are blocking our own good, because the universe is never blocking it. Thinking makes it so. So what are you thinking? Are you thinking about how it feels to have the very thing you are craving? Or are you thinking about the reasons you don't have it? Are you thinking about the unlimited possibility of your life? Or are you thinking about being limited in some way? Do you believe that you have to be in a certain place even if you don't like it in order to be safe? If you don't know how to get unstuck, then pray for a change in perception. Prayer is always answered because God never deserts its beloved. We are imprisoned by our own limited thinking. How willing are you to be set free from your imprisonment? Set yourself free to live each day with the acceptance, enthusiasm, and joy of a child. The little children shall lead them. So I love that, because you define with these questions, are you thinking about unlimited possibility in your life, or are you thinking about how you are limited. And it does, these questions cause me to go, wait, which side of the coin am I looking at? Or which shift do I want to make in the way I view my circumstances in my life and my perception? Where is my perception really focused on?
I think a lot of us think we're open to receive, and we're ready to get the goods, and we're not blocking. But, if we really stop and think, really ask that question, what am I thinking?
Yeah.
We'll be surprised, because I think we're probably thinking a thought that actually does block the good.
Right. And it goes back, this circles back to what you were saying earlier in our conversation. It's not just so much blocking the good as it's those barriers we put up to keep ourselves from knowing ourselves.
That's right.
And in knowing ourselves, that good is activated and flowing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm really enjoying this book, and it's called Into Me See, a book for daily inspiration by Karen Wylie. So I just opened, this will probably be the last one I get to read on air, because this is what I opened it to. Living Your Extraordinary Life. Hey, we're talking on Living Your Inspired Life about living your extraordinary life with Karen Wylie here. So the quote is by Joel Osteen. So would you tell everybody who Joel is, just in case people don't know?
He's a writer. He's written many, many books, and someone who we are inspired by. Been around a long time. I mean, he's not here anymore, but his writings have been around a long time.
So this is what he says. When you break through in your mind, believing you can rise higher and overcome obstacles, then God will unleash the power within that will enable you to go beyond the ordinary into the extraordinary life you were designed to live. And Karen says, as Joel says, we are here to live extraordinary lives, not just ordinary lives. The only thing holding us back is our reluctance to claim the fullness of our good. We ask for a thimbleful when in reality we can have a barn full or even more. It is about minding our minds, however, and that takes some amount of discipline. Generally, my feelings give me a clue as to what I'm thinking. In my effort to stay on the high-flying disc, as Abraham Hicks would say, meaning you stay in the high vibration of positive energy, I sometimes find myself criticizing my mind for thinking negative thoughts, almost making my mind the enemy. I realize that is not a beneficial approach. I'm not here to fight against my own mind, or for that matter, any aspect of my being. A gentler approach is to say to myself that I am the guardian of divine mind. I love that, Karen. My mind is an aspect of the one mind, the mind of God. I'm not here to resist or fight against anything, even my own negative thoughts or the illusions of the past. The idea that I am the guardian of the divine mind, which is my mind, brings peace to my heart and easy access to loving thoughts that enrich and expand my life. Being the guardian of my mind puts me in more protective, peaceful stance. As I let go of my resistance, the love, which is the hub of my life, has an opportunity to flourish. Negativity, then, has no power over me, because I remember in that moment that I am the guardian of divine mind, that I have access to the kingdom of God, and that I am here to live an extraordinary life. And the affirmation is, there is a power within me that I can access. I am the guardian of divine mind. And we only have a minute or two left, Karen, but I have to tell you that, just that phrase right there, because I am one of those people that, fights myself about, well, I got to watch what I'm saying or watch what I'm thinking or refocus. And it does put me in opposition to myself. And you stated it so clearly there. I am the guardian of divine mind.
Yes.
And my mind gets to be a part of that.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So really briefly, we've got 1 minute left. John of God, you are going to John of God again this year?
Yeah, it'll be my 5th time. And that's a beautiful place to go to for the clearing, for the clearing of the false beliefs, for the clearing of whatever blocks there are for you. Wonderful healer. People come from all over the world. He's in Brasilia, about an hour out of Brasilia. And he's an amazing man, a simple man, but yet a man who has been gifted with being able to channel spirits that have been on the planet in the past.
Right, in the past.
And he does amazing work with all kinds of people on the planet. For me, I think it's one of the most powerful places on the planet right now for producing love.
Well, so I tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to have you come back and we'll talk about John of God for people that don't know anything about him, because I've known you for a while and I know every time you come back you are even more who you are. I was going to say you're healed, but that's not what happens. Yeah. You are even more open to who you are, and I love that. So the book is called Intimacy, a book for daily inspiration, and can they get this on Amazon?
Absolutely.
Okay, Amazon.
And Wylie is spelled W-Y-L-I-E.
Okay. I've been talking to Karen Wylie, and we're just going to end with, and so it is, namaste.
Namaste.